Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show, weekend edition. That's right. We did say that if any craziness went on over the weekend, we would hop back on and we'd get a show out for you guys. And lo and behold, it has been a very, very crazy weekend already. It's only Saturday, and yet already it feels like we've got a ton to go over. Keith, I feel like I'm going to be just like muttering health and safety in my sleep at this point, because that's about all that we're hearing right now is about a new player that's being put in health and safety protocols.
Yeah, absolutely. We were watching a movie today, and
Mm-hmm.
it felt like every 5 minutes my phone got blown up with some new player out. It feels like it was the same way yesterday. It's just been so much going on with it. So we'll dive into that, get into that stuff, and then we're going to get into some signings that have happened,
Uh-huh.
mostly, not all, but most of them related to health and safety and those kind of things. So let's dive in.
Yeah, and change in the way the NBA is looking at these signings and things as well, too, in
Yep.
terms of
Yep.
making it mandatory. So we're going to get into that. But let's start, obviously, with the headline. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, both in health and safety protocols. Keith, this is mind-blowing. I am completely shocked. I never in my wildest dreams would have guessed that if you took a unvaccinated individual and put them on a team full of players that are in the middle of a breakout, that person would then also go into health and safety protocols. I can't believe it, man. There's no way anyone could have seen this coming.
Yeah, now to be fair, Kyrie wasn't around the team yet. He hasn't been
Sure.
with them just yet. That was that news we hadn't even had a chance to cover because it happened after our last show, I believe, right? Or maybe we talked about. I don't know. So much
It
has
was it
happened in
was
the last
after.
couple of days. It was after.
Yeah.
So basically, the Nets decided Kyrie can come back. They agree he will only play in road games, and that he was going to take some time to work back up to returning. It was going to be a ramp up time, and now that's going to be delayed at least 5 days because Kyrie Irving is out, or at least well, longer than that actually, because how it works for him is it's going to be he has to record 5 negative tests in a row, at least 24 hours apart for each test as an unvaccinated player. So it's going to be a while before we actually see him ready to go and out there. So yeah, we'll see with that. Kevin Durant is out. Durant was not going to play tonight against Orlando. That game has 22 total players out.
Oh.
Between the two teams, Orlando's going through COVID and injuries and the like. They have, I believe it is 12 players out of the guys on the roster. Call up 4 players from the G League just to be able to play yesterday. The Nets are continuing to sign up players. With hardship exceptions
Mm-hmm.
as well. So we're going to see where this all goes. But right now, the Nets are going through it. But Kyrie Irving back. Personal opinion, I don't love that the Nets caved after being so strong of he won't be a part-time player, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the comments that are coming out is it's a little shaky at best. I don't love some of the comments from the front office about why they did this. We get it. You have a whole bunch of guys out. Just say that, but don't try to add a whole bunch of other things on top of it.
Well, I mean, they have a bunch of guys out, but again, you're only going to have him for road games, and you're already being able to go sign players to replace those players who are out. So, I mean, it wasn't like there was
Yeah.
this great need. And then on top of that, it's not like the Nets are like right on the playoff line where, oh my gosh, we really need this piece to make a push here. I don't think that it was quite as urgent that they bring Kyrie back at this moment as they made it seem. Now, obviously, Nets fans are celebrating, I'm sure, because Kyrie Irving is back and he's a good player, and of course that is going to help their team win games. I guess road games, not so much home games. But like you said, the Nets did make a big show of things, saying we're not going to allow anybody to be a part-time player, and then they sort of changed that. Now, of course, they are right, though. Things do also change, right? I mean, things change, your opinions change, the situation changes. Obviously, we're living in a different world right now than we were when they first made that statement. So I can understand why there might need to be a little bit of leeway towards the Nets, but it didn't feel like the situation was so dire in Brooklyn in terms of just, oh, there's no replacement players that we can use and we have to call up Kyrie as a last resort. I wonder how much of this is just Kyrie's really, really good. And we'd rather have him on the floor than not at the end of the day, particularly with the amount of minutes that were being placed on Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I think that it's more that second or that last part
Yeah.
there of him being a good player, wanting him back because Durant is taking such a toll these minutes on him. They intend to have a deep playoff run, and we'll see where this goes. Who knows how long it'll be? Sean Marks speaking tonight said they don't know when they can expect to see him play. They don't know what kind of shape Kyrie Irving is in and ready to play. So we'll see what this looks like. But yeah, it's just it is what it is.
I'll also say this, Keith. One of the things that kind of irks me with this whole situation is the people that are running around taking victory laps, particularly political victory laps on Kyrie Irving. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me to be, oh, I told you so, Kyrie won, or something like that. Like, we're seeing that kind of thing. And to me, it's another indication of hot take culture that's kind of taken over, right? Where you're seeing people that are firmly set in one camp or another, and they're not willing to adjust to anything that changes on the fly. All they're looking for is a moment to go, see, I was right, you were wrong, ha ha ha, and run around and do that sort of stuff. It's, to me, it's gotten in the way of true and objective analysis of a situation. Kyrie Irving coming back, I don't think it's anything that anyone could have foreseen or anything like that, because we're in a situation right now that nobody could have foreseen in terms of a new variant and these cases spiking and all that sort of stuff. So it's strange, and it's unfortunate that whenever something like this happens, you do get a lot of that kind of "I told you so" mentality. It's something we're seeing more and more in social media today, and the political tinge to it as well is just it's a bit unsettling.
Yeah, I mean, we both had people coming at both of us because we had said we didn't think we would see him, and people are like, "See, you guys are idiots. You were wrong. Admit you were wrong." It's that completely overlooks why this decision was made and whatnot. But I'll be quite honest. Let's don't want to talk about it again until he actually plays, because I don't really care to go down this path any longer. Let's move on to whatever the next thing is.
Let's do it. So we've got let's just jump to your Celtics, because they've had a rough couple of days here in terms of the number of players who are now out, but they've also brought in a replacement player. Why don't you give us an update on that?
Yeah, Celtics have 6 players out in health and safety protocols. Al Horford, Grant Williams, the two of the main guys there. Two of their kind of 3 big rotation in Boston. Jabari Parker, Juancho Hernan Gomez, and both two-way players, Sam Hauser and Broderick Thomas, are both out as well. Dennis Schroeder is out with a non-COVID illness, and Romeo Langford got hurt in Friday night's game against the Golden State Warriors, and now is out with neck soreness. So they used one of their hardships. They're eligible for 3. They used oneness on Justin Jackson. He'll be available for tonight's game. He is one of the 10 available Celtics to play in tonight's game. So we'll see what this looks like. And by tonight, I mean Saturday is when we're recording this. I'm going to play in a little over an hour. So we'll see what that looks like. But it's, I mean, as Ime Udoka says, no excuses. It's going through the league right now for everybody. We're going through it too. We just got to keep working at it.
Yeah, exactly. That's and they aren't the only team that's in this situation, but it's unfortunate reality for a number of teams around the NBA right now. You just have a lot of guys who are out at the moment. Keith, what do you think about these opportunities, though? I mean, we're also getting some chances for players who wouldn't otherwise. I mean, Justin Jackson, we're seeing Isaiah Thomas, a number of James Ennis with the Nets. We're seeing a number of guys. Do you think any of these guys wind up sticking? Like, is that kind of a silver lining here, that some of these guys may see new life brought into their NBA careers?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think a handful of these guys could earn spots. We talked about that with Isaiah Thomas in our last show. If he plays really well for the Lakers, and he played pretty well in his first game back, I thought he looked good. I thought he looked quick and explosive and aggressive, and got to the free throw line 9 times. I thought he was one of the Lakers' better players in that loss to Minnesota. But we'll see. I think it kind of probably a lot of it's going to be situational and depends on where the team is at by the time these 10 days are up, or by the time they lose the hardships, because that's the hope, right? Is that you don't need to continue on with these hardships.
Correct.
And that eventually they go away. So yeah, but I do think at least 1 or 2 of these guys, maybe not necessarily with the teams that they're currently with, but maybe this is a good audition to be with another team down the line. Beyond that, like to take it back to Boston for a minute, Aaron Nesmith has not received consistent playing time this year
Mm-hmm.
because they have such a deep group, but he's going to get tonight. He played a good amount of minutes against the Warriors. So back-to-back games, he's going to play quite a bit. And this is a great opportunity for a young player to step up and get this chance to play more and really kind of show what they can do with some primetime minutes. So yeah, a lot of guys have opportunities here over the next, let's call it 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, however long this runs through the league. Guys are going to get this chance to step up.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the Shane Falco moment for some of these guys, right? They're going to have the opportunity to fill in, and who knows what happens here. Again, that's trying to find a silver lining to all of these players being out, because it's certainly a tough thing for the NBA to deal with at the moment. But Keith, I guess we should mention this too. We've talked about it a bunch on here, that the NBA is in no way looking towards shutting down or anything like that. You've talked about that quite a bit. There was an ESPN report that came out recently, too, saying the same thing, that the owners on a recent call all unanimously said they are going to do anything and everything to make sure that they don't miss games or that things don't shut down. And that obviously includes bringing in players that are essentially replacement players in order to play these games and continue the season. So that looks like the path that we're going to be heading down. I would expect to see more and more of these players getting called up and getting chances as we get further into the winter and we get more of these cases.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is the league is working with the Players Association to give teams, in effect, some relief on this. So in the case of the Nets, right now, each one of these 10-day signings that they've added, so James Ennis, the Langston Galloway, and the third guy slipping my mind at the Shaq Harrison, those guys are all going to make just under $96,000 as far as their cap and tax hit goes. But the tax penalty, because of how far over the luxury tax these players are, is $500,000, because the Nets are in a position where it's basically 5-1 is what they're paying in terms of dollars penalized. So what the NBA is looking at with the teams is saying hardship signings won't count against the cap or the tax. And that's also helpful for teams that are up against the hard cap as well, because you don't want to be using up your hard cap thing. But in addition to that, what the NBA is also saying is, if you're down this many players, what they want to push through, which is what the PA would love, is you have to sign these players.
Yeah.
You have to go out and fill out your roster with players. And I think that's a pretty good compromise. I think that's a pretty good compromise. Yeah, it costs you some real dollars, but it gives you full rosters. You're not going to be playing these goofy 8-man rosters where, maybe 4 or 5 guys are centers, and, it doesn't even resemble a real basketball game anymore. I think these things can make a lot of sense. Now, who loses out in this? The fans, because this isn't great, because you're like this Magic Nets game that's going to be played Saturday night with barely recognizable rosters. It might as well be a G League game.
Right.
That's tough, right? Because you paid a lot of money for those tickets and those kind of things. But this is taking lemons and making lemonade, I don't know. This is taking rocks and making lemonade out of it, I guess, trying to do something. I don't know. It's probably going to be bad tasting lemonade no matter what.
Yeah, this is this is the NBA doing what they can to try to make sure that teams have enough healthy players to play and are able to get through these games. And I think this whole idea of you have to sign players if you're down X number of players due to health and safety protocols, I think it's just a way to make sure that you don't wind up with a team that suddenly, the day of the game, they had 4 players out, and then suddenly you have 3 or 4 more tests or something that come back, and then next thing you know, you don't have enough to play. To force those teams to go and sign players, that means the game will continue even if they do hit a few more cases, hopefully, anyway, based on the numbers that they've got. Because you have to have, what is it, at least 7, I believe, or is it 8 now?
Yeah, you have to have 8 in uniform.
It was what it was. Lakers, I believe, had 7 at one point, and then who was it? I think Robert Sacre fouled out of a game and got to keep playing because they didn't have any more players available. But anyway, that was an extreme situation.
Yep. Yeah, and what's going to happen here too is it sounds like the league is also at least considering what do you do with asymptomatic players? We've seen the
Yes.
NFL has made some changes that'll go into
Mhm.
effect. I believe that starts next week
Yep.
in the NFL, where they're going to let some people play that maybe would have been out prior. I want to say the Washington football team doctor said if it wasn't for the COVID testing, that they would have only held 2 players out of practice for these illnesses because they didn't seem to be all that bad.
Yeah.
How these guys were feeling. So it's going to be an evolving situation. We'll cover it when we know more. But want to get into some of these actual signings that have happened over here over the last couple
Sure.
days.
Let's do it. Where do you want to start?
Well, we already talked Justin Jackson with the Celtics.
Uh-huh.
Justin Jackson, former first-round pick of the Sacramento Kings, also played for Dallas with Milwaukee last year. He's bounced around the league a little bit, was playing in the G League with the Texas Legends. He's a forward who can space the floor a little bit with his shooting. We should just say that, shoot the floor.
Shoot the floor.
To be quicker to get there. Right?
At this point.
But well, we'll see. It's chance he plays tonight because Celtics only have 10 players available to play Saturday night. It should say Saturday because a lot of people are probably going to watch this on Sunday. But we'll see if he gets into the game and we'll see what he looks like. We talked the Nets. James Ennis, Shaq Harrison have both been signed now to hardship exceptions. Sounds like they're also going to add Wenyen Gabriel. That signing did not come through prior to today as of yet. So we'll see, if he plays on Saturday night against the Orlando Magic or not, or maybe that's one that there was something. Sometimes with these G League guys, there can be travel and other things. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's So those are the Nets ones. Where do you want to go next?
We talked all about the Lakers signing Isaiah Thomas. We talked about that signing going through. I think James Ennis was an interesting one as well that you mentioned. What about Garrison Matthews? I know this one isn't health and safety protocol related, but I think this is actually a pretty big thing.
This is a good story.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a guy who we talked about him a little bit. I believe it was last show or show before. This is a guy who has been playing on 2-way contracts, has been getting starting jobs, but just never been able to get that full NBA contract. And now he's played his way into one with the Houston Rockets. He's getting a 4-year deal worth $8 million, which I know by NBA standards is not a lot, but here he is playing his way into a full contract. The Rockets are going to waive Daniel House in order to free up a roster spot for Garrison Matthews. So happy for Garrison Matthews. He finally figures out a way to get an NBA contract and a steady spot on a team.
Yeah, and to be clear, these are all done now. These transactions are all now official. Daniel House was waived by the Rockets. We had speculated maybe they waive a player. House was one of the players we threw out there. Maybe they do an unbalanced trade that opens up a spot. But we knew it was coming for Matthews, that he was going to get signed to a deal or converted or whatever the case was. But yeah, 4 years, $8 million. Rockets will dip into some of what they have left of their MLE to make this happen. So that's going to be how Houston gets there on this one. So, again, like you said, good for Garrison Matthews, good for the Rockets taking care of their guy. And then they replace Matthews on his 2-way with Trevelin Queen is going to come in on a 2-way contract to replace Matthews. So these deals are all done now. Daniel House, my guess is he'll probably clear waivers. I don't think anyone will claim him. About $3.8 million or so in dead salary goes on the Rockets books. But let's see what that looks like going forward. If anybody claims him or if he resurfaces. I've had a lot of people in my mentions. I don't know, I'm maybe assuming you've had some Lakers fans asking you as well. He's not. I think people are thinking of the guy from about 2-3 years ago. He just hasn't been that player the last couple of years. He doesn't really shoot it all that well. His defense has slipped quite a bit. I don't know if it's injuries or he just has fallen off as a player. But he'll probably get another chance. But I don't think anybody looking at this guy to get signed to come in and be a rotation player, it's probably not going to happen.
I mean, the Houston Rockets don't have a very strong roster to begin with, right? And he's the guy that was deemed to be the weakest link. Goodbye, and got cut in order to make room for Garrison Matthews. So I don't think anybody should be picking him up thinking, yes, the Rockets cut Daniel House. We're going to get him. Our wing situation is fixed. But I do think you're right. I think he's going to get another shot somewhere, in part because he's a 6'6" wing that has a history of at least being a decent outside shooter. Teams want that somebody's going to give him another look. He'll get a chance somewhere. And especially based on what's going on right now, when we're seeing so many teams having to turn to hardship players, he's going to get, even if nobody claims him, somebody will at the very least give him a 10-day contract for one of these hardship situations, because why not? Why not give him a look if you're a team that finds themselves in that scenario?
Yeah, hey, and Garrison Matthews, again, as we're recording this Saturday evening, Rockets already played today. They had a noon Eastern tip against the Detroit Pistons. Garrison Matthews celebrates his new contract with 16 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and a Rockets win. So,
Keith,
again, good day for him.
Celtics fans upset that they didn't hang on to him?
A little bit. I think there's a subset of Celtics fans that are, this guy should have stuck over Jabari Parker, which is hard to argue with. I think Matthews would have been a more helpful player than Jabari Parker. He would not take a two-way with Boston. That was why they let him go. Their plan was for him to take their second two-way, and he said, no, I would either want a full spot or I want to go somewhere where I have a better chance, which obviously he did with Houston. But the Celtics fans are also realistic in saying Romeo Langford and Aaron Nesmith have barely cracked the rotation this year for the Celtics. Why would we think Garrison Matthews would crack it, any easier than those two? So, I mean, today with everybody, all these guys, oh yeah, for sure, they'd love to have him. But yeah, it's a good question.
But to finish things up, we should mention a couple of key players here. Evan Mobley, why can't we have nice things? He's in health and safety protocols with the Cavs.
Isaac Okoro, too.
Isaac Okoro and Marcus Morris for the Clippers. Now, fortunately, we did hear a little bit of good news in terms of the Clippers. Marcus Morris, sounds like it's more of an isolated incident. Everybody else, from what last I saw, is negative. And obviously, that can change very, very quickly. We've seen players into protocols, out of protocols, back into protocols in the case of, say, Malik Monk. So, by the time I publish this, maybe this has changed, but Marcus Morris appears to be the only one of the Clippers into health and safety protocols. But those are some other key names right now that are going to be missing for teams. And in particular, I think that we're starting to get to the point where this is going to impact the Christmas Day games, unfortunately, which is always a marquee day 100%. For the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, just that Lakers-Nets game, it's hard to see how the Nets have anything resembling a full roster. That's really Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant just entered today. So if he doesn't return 2 negative tests 24 hours apart, it's 10 days. So that takes you past Christmas. So yeah, that part really does kind of suck as a fan, because that's, a great day to sit down, watch 5 games and, really enjoy what you're seeing. And yeah, there it is. Speaking of Christmas Day, team that plays on Christmas Day, the New York Knicks, they're like everybody else going through this COVID protocols right now. They signed Tyler Hall to a 10-ship. Man, I'm just doing all the what do they call those portmanteaus? I think is how you say that. Where you combine words. 10-day contract via the hardship. For Tyler Hall, so he's going to be in there for them. He was out there warming up in Boston. Again, those two teams play here on Saturday night in about a little less than an hour. So we'll see if he actually gets into a game or not. Tom Thibodeau laughs at these teams with only 10 players available and says, "Wow, so many! I only use 8." So we'll see where that goes.
A little bit of good news here coming out of Chicago. There's hope that Derrick Jones Jr. will be available to play tomorrow against the Lakers. Obviously, you want to hear about some of these guys coming back out of these protocols. And you've got a few other Chicago Bulls. DeMar DeRozan is back. DeMar DeRozan has said the whole time he was in health and safety protocols, the entire 10 days, he felt fine. He said the biggest problem for him was he got bored just sitting around. But we also found out it's not just DeRozan, Kobe White, Javonte Green, also available against the Lakers. So the Bulls got hit, it was about a week ago when the Bulls really got hammered, and now we're starting to see the Bulls come out of this. And so this is what you want. You want to see players coming out of protocols, being available to play, and us to start to make that kind of transition there. So good news for the Chicago Bulls, and glad to hear that those players didn't sound like they were dealing with heavy symptoms or anything like that.
Yeah, and they were able to host a practice today, which was their first one in over a week. First team activity together as a team in over a week since they got shut down. So yeah, good to see there. Continuing on positive news, Ja Morant is he's still out with the knee
Mhm.
sprain, but he also was one of these players while out got put in the health and safety protocols. He's going to rejoin the team. They hope this weekend. He says he's feeling great. The that part is awesome that he's feeling great from the positive COVID test. The maybe even better news as far as his injury goes is Taylor Jenkins says he's feeling great with the knee too. So that
Mm.
doesn't mean he's necessarily ready to come back. They're going to be cautious with him, but we're going to see him back here sooner rather than later as well.
I also he also published some photos of himself. He got his high school jersey retired,
Yeah,
so
pretty cool.
that's always cool to see. It's
Yeah,
good, cool moment.
absolutely. Yeah. Last one, I think, for sign or two more. The Kings signed Justin Robinson, a point guard, to a 10-day hardship spot. He
Mhm.
comes in. The Kings are without a whole bunch of guys, including De'Aaron Fox and Davian Mitchell. So Justin Robinson, that had been rumored, he signed yesterday and played yesterday in the game. And then the Nuggets are going to re-sign Davin Reed. That is a standard hardship exception. So we'll see that they're now more. They've got some guys out due to COVID, but they're also still running through it with injuries because they've got PJ Dozier, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter,
Mhm.
Marcus Howard. So that one I believe is going to be a standard hardship versus one of these COVID 10-day hardships. So slightly different process that not enough to matter for anybody to really care about. But Devin Reed, who started a bunch of games for the Nuggets when he was there on an original hardship, is going to be back with them.
Well, obviously some good news at least to finish off with. I'm just checking Twitter right now to see if anything else because the last seriously the last
thing.
what 24 48 hours it's been
Crazy.
so crazy. I've literally had time for Lakers Nation where I've had to re-record multiple times because by the time it's taken me to record something and then publish, like right before I get to publish, everything's changed again. It's been a crazy, crazy last few days. So you never know. So that's why I'm giving Twitter one last look here to see if anything else happened to come out while we were talking. But Keith, I hope we start getting more and more positive stories here. We certainly need them.
Well, here's the breaking news you were waiting on.
Uh-oh.
Anthony Davis will miss at least 4 weeks with an MCL sprain.
Okay.
So
all right. I mean, that could have been worse.
Yeah.
That could have been worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where you almost feel kind of fortunate. The 4 weeks that's when he'll be reevaluated, as we talk about here on the show all the time. Reevaluation is different than return to play. Rarely is it on reevaluation day. They're like, everything's good, you can play. It does happen on occasion, but yeah, he's going to be out at least these 4 weeks. My guess is it'll probably be closer to 6 if everything looks good in that 4 weeks. It's usually week to 2 of get back into shape time to play. But yeah, it's just another blow. I mean, it feels like this has been a really wide open, fun season that is now between COVID and injuries is getting completely wrecked.
Yeah.
It's starting to be one of those things where it just is like, well, what do we got here? But as you said, that's probably actually good news.
Yes,
for the Lakers.
I've had some fear that it was going to be season for him. I had some fear of that was going to be the case, just based on what happened and everything. But again, not great. Certainly for a team that felt like they were finally starting to get some things to click, and then suddenly they didn't have a bunch of players again, and now we're going to be missing Anthony Davis for a while. So they'll have to get through it. Yep. But in any event,
going to make Trevor Ariza being close that much more important for the next.
He was actually in uniform.
Several weeks.
He was in uniform last night.
It sounded like that was more of a if
it was a break glass in case of emergency.
Fall out and,
yes.
Yeah, we really need to kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, and they're still going through their own COVID stuff of their own and that. But that big man rotation that is this is where if you're the Lakers, you're fortunate that LeBron is kind of probably more for than anything else at this point in his career.
Yeah,
you really need him to be. But we'll wrap it there because I know now you've got something you have to do.
I do
here for your other I shouldn't call it your other job, but as far as I'm concerned, it's your other job. I'm going to vault this one to your primary. But yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Everybody, we appreciate you guys coming on and joining us. Again, we always appreciate all of our new subscribers coming in too. Make sure you guys turn on notifications and make sure you're following us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is that you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.